Cesar Millan has become famous as the dog whisperer, the man who can tame the most untrainable dogs. But now he's being sued, accused of having a pit bull that bit humans and even killed Queen Latifah's dog.
For nearly a decade, Cesar Millan seemed unstoppable. Every week, millions of viewers watched him walk into homes where dangerous, aggressive, or uncontrollable dogs had defeated everyone else and somehow restore order in minutes. His hit series, Dog Whisperer, transformed him into one of the world's most famous dog trainers, making him a global television icon almost overnight. Then, just as his popularity seemed untouchable, the show quietly disappeared. Today, we'll take a peek behind the curtain and unveil the story of the tragic downfall of the Dog Whisperer. Let's start from the very beginning, from undocumented immigrant to television icon. Long before the television cameras arrived, long before millions of viewers called him the Dog Whisperer, Cesar Millan was just a young man with an improbable dream. Born on August 27, 1969, in Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico, he grew up in the rural town of Ixpalino on his grandfather's farm, surrounded by livestock, stray dogs, and country life. Family members nicknamed him El Perrero, the dog herder, because he seemed to have an unusual connection with animals from an early age. He spent countless hours watching how dogs communicated with one another without words, fascinated by the subtle movements, posture, and energy that seemed to determine whether a confrontation erupted or quietly dissolved. Those childhood observations would eventually become the foundation of a philosophy that made him famous. But there was one problem. He was in Mexico, not the United States. His family could not afford veterinary school, and the world he dreamed about seemed impossibly far away. Inspired by stories about Hollywood's famous animal trainers, he decided that if he wanted to become the best dog trainer in the world, he would have to go where the best trainers supposedly lived. In the early 1990s, while still in his early 20s, Cesar crossed into the United States without legal authorization. He had little more than the equivalent of $100 his father had given him. The reality waiting on the other side was far harsher than the dream. Cesar arrived in Southern California, unable to speak English, without stable housing, and with almost no connections. For a brief period, he experienced homelessness, sleeping wherever he could while searching for work. He found employment cleaning kennels, grooming dogs, and walking neighborhood pets, often accepting whatever jobs would keep him afloat. In interviews, he has recalled occasions when the dogs he cared for seemed to enjoy better living conditions than he did. But then, slowly, word began to spread. Unlike many trainers who focused primarily on obedience commands, Cesar specialized in dogs that owners considered impossible. Aggressive dogs, anxious dogs, dogs that had already bitten people or destroyed homes. Those became his calling card. Instead of advertising heavily, he built his reputation almost entirely through referrals. One satisfied client recommended another, and before long, wealthy neighborhoods around Los Angeles began requesting his services. A feature in the Los Angeles Times introduced an even larger audience to the quiet immigrant, whose unusual methods seemed to succeed where traditional approaches had failed. It was one of the first moments when Cesar's name began circulating beyond the local dog-owning community. But then, his life changed forever. Actress Jada Pinkett Smith watched Cesar work with dogs and immediately recognized his unusual talent. She became an early mentor, encouraging him to think beyond private training sessions and imagine reaching a national audience. But she also identified a major obstacle. Cesar was not fluent in English. To earn viewers' trust, Cesar Millan first had to improve his English. With help from Jada Pinkett Smith, he took lessons and immersed himself in the language. Soon after, Dog Whisperer premiered on National Geographic in September 2004. Despite minimal promotion, the series quickly gained attention as audiences watched seemingly hopeless dogs undergo remarkable transformations. Cesar's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the frantic households he entered. Instead of shouting commands or relying on elaborate equipment, he projected confidence and repeatedly emphasized one simple concept: calm, assertive energy. Whether audiences fully understood the phrase or not, they understood the results. Families who had considered surrendering beloved pets often left the episode believing they had been given a second chance. As the years passed, Cesar became far more than a successful television host. His books climbed bestseller lists, his seminars filled arenas around the world, and his methods influenced millions of dog owners across dozens of countries. In August of 2009, he officially became a citizen of the United States, completing a journey that had begun nearly 2 decades earlier with an uncertain crossing at the border. Yet, fame brought an unexpected consequence: the war against the dog whisperer. As Cesar Millan's fame spread across the world, another battle was unfolding in veterinary schools, scientific journals, professional conferences, and animal welfare organizations. To millions of viewers, Cesar was the man who could calm the most dangerous dogs on Earth. To many experts in animal behavior, however, he represented the continued popularity of ideas they believed modern science had already left behind. At the center of the dispute was Cesar's philosophy. Throughout Dog Whisperer, he repeatedly explained that dogs need a calm, confident pack leader. He argued that many behavioral problems develop because owners unknowingly allow dogs to assume leadership within the household. His trademark phrase, "calm, assertive energy," became known around the world, describing what he believed dogs instinctively respected. Cesar's techniques often involved controlling a dog's space, correcting unwanted behavior with leash movements or body positioning, and projecting confidence rather than emotion. To many viewers, the concept felt intuitive. Dogs appeared calmer, owners felt empowered, and dramatic transformations unfolded within a single episode. The roots of those ideas stretched back decades. During the 1940s through the 1970s, researchers studying captive wolves observed animals competing for dominance inside artificial enclosures. Those studies introduced the popular image of the alpha wolf, a powerful leader maintaining order over a rigid hierarchy through dominance. That theory quickly influenced military dog handlers, police trainers, obedience schools, and eventually popular dog training culture. By the time Cesar Millan began working professionally, dominance-based language had become deeply embedded in how many people understood canine behavior. But while TV audiences were embracing those concepts, scientists had already begun questioning whether the original research was valid. One of the biggest turning points came from the very scientist whose work helped popularize the idea. Wildlife biologist Dr. L. David Meck spent years studying wolves in the wild and eventually concluded that natural wolf packs looked nothing like the aggressive hierarchies observed in captivity. Instead, they usually functioned as family units led by breeding parents rather than individuals constantly fighting for dominance. Meck later urged people to stop casually using the term alpha wolf, arguing that it created a misleading picture of wolf society. At the same time, researchers increasingly emphasized another important distinction. Domestic dogs are not wolves. Thousands of years of domestication had fundamentally altered canine behavior, making direct comparisons far more complicated than many earlier training philosophies suggested. As those scientific views gained acceptance, criticism of Dog Whisperer intensified. Veterinary behaviorists argued that some of the methods shown on television relied too heavily on confrontation. They questioned techniques such as leash corrections, alpha rolls, flooding, physical restraint, and other forms of direct behavioral interruption. Their concern was not only whether these methods worked in the moment, but whether they might increase fear, anxiety, or aggression over time in certain dogs. The American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior published position statements explaining that dominance theory should not be used as the primary explanation for behavior problems and that punishment-based techniques carried unnecessary risks. Researchers increasingly favored reward-based training over confrontational methods. Critics, including Dr. Nicholas Dodman and animal behavior author Mark Derr, publicly challenged Cesar Millan, arguing his techniques lacked scientific support and risked encouraging outdated training practices through his television show. In 2006, the American Humane Association criticized several techniques featured on Dog Whisperer and urged National Geographic to stop airing the program. There was another concern as well. Television naturally compresses hours of observation and rehabilitation into a 40-minute episode. Professional trainers argued that inexperienced viewers might copy physical corrections without understanding the timing, body language, experience, or risk assessment involved. A technique performed by an experienced handler working with a dangerous dog under controlled conditions could produce very different results when attempted by a frightened pet owner at home. Many experts argued the greatest risk was viewers attempting to copy Cesar Millan's methods. Cesar defended his approach, saying most featured dogs faced euthanasia due to severe behavioral issues. He maintained his techniques came from decades of real-world rehabilitation, not classroom theory. In his view, theory alone could not prepare someone to safely intervene when a large, aggressive dog was seconds away from biting another person or animal. Whether viewers sided with the scientists or the dog whisperer himself, one fact became impossible to ignore. Cesar Millan had become more than a television personality. He had become the public face of one of the most consequential arguments in modern animal behavior. National Geographic now found itself balancing extraordinary ratings against mounting criticism. The controversies keep coming. By the time Dog Whisperer entered its later seasons, Cesar Millan had become one of the most recognizable figures in television. But success had brought a new reality. Every episode, every technique, and every public appearance was now being scrutinized by critics, journalists, and animal welfare organizations. In October of 2006, the American Humane Association publicly criticized several of the training methods shown on the program. The organization described some techniques as inhumane, outdated, and improper, and confirmed that it had asked National Geographic to remove the show from its schedule. The request attracted considerable media attention because the National Geographic brand had long been associated with science and education. Yet despite the pressure, the network refused to cancel the series. Instead, the program remained on the air for another 6 years. Even more surprising, the relationship between Cesar and the organization eventually became less hostile. Millan later invited representatives from the American Humane Association to observe filming, and while both sides continued to disagree about certain methods, the public conflict gradually cooled. The debate reignited several years later on British television. In 2012, Cesar Millan faced criticism after ITV aired footage that appeared to show him striking a Labrador during training. He denied the claim, calling it a corrective touch rather than a punch. The RSPCA warned that confrontational methods could increase fear and aggression, fueling widespread debate as legal disputes also emerged. Over the years, Cesar Millan and businesses connected to his training operations became involved in several civil lawsuits involving dogs that allegedly suffered injuries or later attacked people. It is important to distinguish allegations from proven facts. Filing a lawsuit does not establish liability, and several cases ended without courts determining that Cesar had committed wrongdoing. Nevertheless, every new lawsuit generated fresh headlines, keeping the controversies alive even when the legal outcomes remained unresolved. For television executives and advertisers, repeated litigation can create reputational risks regardless of whether claims are ultimately proven. Perhaps the most widely discussed lawsuit emerged years after Dog Whisperer had already ended. In 2021, former gymnast Lydia Mattis filed a lawsuit alleging that Junior, Cesar Millan's pit bull, attacked her and caused severe injuries that effectively ended her gymnastics career. The lawsuit also alleged that Junior had previously killed one of actress Queen Latifah's dogs and that this earlier incident had been concealed. Millan denied the allegation involving Queen Latifah's dog and disputed key parts of the lawsuit. Eventually, the case was settled out of court. Another controversy erupted around Cesar's later television series, Cesar 911. During one rehabilitation exercise, an aggressive French bulldog chased and bit a pet pig on the ear while cameras were rolling. The footage quickly spread online, prompting complaints from viewers who believed the pig had been unnecessarily placed in danger. Los Angeles County animal cruelty investigators opened an official inquiry, reviewing production footage, veterinary records, and witness statements. After completing the investigation, authorities declined to file criminal charges, concluding there was insufficient evidence of animal cruelty. Legally, the matter ended there. Publicly, however, the incident fueled another round of debate. While these controversies unfolded, dog training itself was undergoing a significant transformation. Reward-based methods, supported by an expanding body of behavioral research, became increasingly mainstream. Television personality Victoria Stilwell, host of It's Me or the Dog, emerged as one of the best-known advocates of positive reinforcement, offering viewers a striking contrast to Cesar's dominance-centered philosophy. Veterinary organizations, animal behaviorists, and many professional trainers increasingly encouraged owners to avoid confrontational corrections in favor of rewards, management, and scientifically supported learning principles. None of these controversies, standing alone, explains why Dog Whisperer eventually came to an end. There is still no official statement linking the show's conclusion to criticism, lawsuits, or animal welfare campaigns. But together, they undeniably changed the conversation surrounding Cesar Millan. The worst, however, was yet to come. The year Cesar Millan nearly lost everything. For years, millions knew Cesar Millan as the calm, confident dog whisperer. But in February 2010, his beloved American Pit Bull Terrier, Daddy, passed away at 16. A familiar presence on the show, Daddy's calm temperament reflected Cesar's philosophy. Originally rescued by rapper Redman, he became Cesar's trusted companion and an enduring symbol of balance and stability. Behind the scenes, Daddy represented something even more personal. He had been with Cesar through his rise from an undocumented immigrant struggling to survive in California to one of the world's most famous dog trainers. Long before the television contracts, best-selling books, and sold-out live tours, Daddy had been at his side. Losing him, Cesar later admitted, felt like losing a member of his family. For Cesar, it marked the beginning of his darkest year. Only 4 months later, Cesar's wife, Cesar Millan, filed for divorce after 16 years of marriage. They had built a family together and raised 2 sons, while Cesar's career became an international phenomenon. The timing could hardly have been worse. What happened next remained hidden from the public for some time. Behind the confident television personality, Cesar slipped into a severe depression. He later admitted that he blamed himself for the breakdown of his marriage and struggled with overwhelming feelings of failure, despite his extraordinary professional success. Eventually, the emotional pain reached a breaking point. Cesar later revealed that he decided to end it all with pills and was found unconscious. In the years that followed, he repeatedly emphasized that emotional suffering can affect anyone, regardless of success, wealth, or public reputation. Recovery came through discipline, exercise, and returning to the dogs that had given his life purpose. Cesar has repeatedly credited physical fitness with helping him regain structure, while working with animals restored his sense of direction. After surviving depression, Cesar began speaking more openly about emotional health. He said the experience made him more attentive to signs of distress in his sons and the people around him. In the meantime, Cesar was fighting another battle that few people knew existed. When Dog Whisperer, with Cesar Millan, aired its final season in September of 2012, many viewers assumed Cesar Millan's career had ended with it. National Geographic never announced that the program had been canceled because of scientific criticism, lawsuits, or pressure from animal welfare organizations. No official statement has ever identified a single reason for the show's ending. Instead, it appears to have been the product of several overlapping factors: the natural lifespan of a long-running series, changing television trends, evolving public attitudes toward dog training, ongoing controversy, and ordinary business decisions. Rather than retreat from the spotlight, Cesar immediately began rebuilding his career. One of his first major moves was launching Cesar Millan Live, a stage show that took his work directly to audiences around the world. Unlike television, these performances offered no editing, dramatic music, or carefully chosen camera angles. Working with shelter dogs and volunteers in front of live audiences, Cesar demonstrated his techniques in real time. Whether people agreed with his methods or not, the crowds showed that interest in the Dog Whisperer had not disappeared. Television soon came calling again. In March 2014, Cesar 911 premiered on Nat Geo Wild, featuring families struggling with severe dog behavior issues. Beyond television, Cesar Millan expanded to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, podcasts, and digital training, reaching millions. His content evolved to cover leadership, psychology, and the relationship between human emotions and canine behavior. His personal life also began to recover. Following the collapse of his first marriage, Cesar found happiness again with actress and stylist Jahira Dar. In April of 2016, he announced their engagement after proposing during a trip to Athens, Greece, overlooking the Acropolis. Then, in July of 2021, Cesar returned to television once more with Better Human, Better Dog, produced for National Geographic and Disney's streaming platforms. The series shifted more attention toward the people behind the leash, arguing that human stress, anxiety, inconsistency, and communication often shape a dog's behavior as much as training itself. The debate, however, never disappeared. Veterinary behaviorists continued to reject elements of Cesar's philosophy, particularly dominance-based techniques and physical corrections, while organizations promoting evidence-based behavioral science advocate reward-based methods supported by modern research. At the same time, millions of dog owners credit Cesar with helping them better understand their dogs and, in many cases, preventing pets from being surrendered to shelters. More than 2 decades later, the divide remains as sharp as ever. At one point, he lost it all. Then he built it all back again. Whether you agree or disagree with his philosophy, you have to respect him for this alone. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.